Starting. Hey everyone, welcome to the AfterStages podcast. I'm here in Cedar Creek, Texas, watching the Tour de France on the NBC Sports channel, and I have a phone over here. Let me turn this so you can see the phone. That I'm on Facebook Live. On this phone, I'm on Facebook Live. Got a couple people watching. We got John Bambanek just joined us. Welcome, John. And let me introduce myself. So I've got YouTube over here, and I've got Facebook over here. And now I've got to check and see if Lance has started his podcast. Let's see if it's started yet. Do a reload of the Lance Armstrong Twitter page. Let's see here. Not yet. Doesn't look like it started yet. Lance Armstrong. Do a reload. Yeah, today's stage 17, Mure to Serre, Chevalier over the Col de Galibier today. Huge mountain, huge over the top mountain today. So anyway, today's result pretty much stayed the same in the GC, which is a general classification. Froome always winning every day. The guy always wins. He always figures out a way to win. He didn't win the stage, but he stayed at the top in the yellow jersey. And he's hot on his trail is Ugoberto, I think it's called. His name is. He ran. And Bardet, the Frenchman, followed by Roux, Landa, and Martin, Tony Martin, all on the heels of Chris Froome. Really tight race this year. Let's see. Have we got it going yet? Okay, let's see. Got a notification here. Not yet, not yet. Mildred Tassoni likes my video 8 minutes ago. Juan Carlos Gonzalez added a photo and drinking clicks, but no notification from on the Lance Armstrong's Stages podcast. So what we're doing every day is we watch the Tour de France on NBC, and then we also watch the Lance Armstrong Stages podcast. Let's see if it's live now. I think it's live. Okay, it's live now, I think. Here we go. Boom. Boom, boom, boom. Here we go. Let's see what they're saying. And I'm going to comment on them, and anyone is welcome to join the hangout. And I have to go to my let's see. I have to go to my. Here we go.
Have either of you guys ever had to do a shoe change in a race?
I have. My buckle's broken mid-race, and I didn't change it. I was going to change it, but like I said, you do not want to change shoes. It's hard to get them exactly right.
Yeah.
So I taped up my shoe mid-race. I'm tight.
Wow. So we know there's.
Well, we're getting a little bandwidth breakup here. That's okay. Let me close all my other tabs here. Do a reload here. This is really an
Spare
experiment.
bike, we know there's spare wheels, and now we know. Or have you always been back into it?
I went to the tour, which is chaotic, as so many people wanted to see it on the other side of the fence like that. I get a real appreciation to what my family's gone through over the years to come watch the race and what all the fans do throughout the Tour de France. It's really a huge spectacle, a huge show. But I never stopped watching. I've always remained.
Hey,
really
Christopher
interested in
Hardcastle,
all the riders.
welcome to the
Close
show.
contact with a lot of medal teammates as well.
And I know we're going back a little bit, but surely you had some opinions as a very accomplished sprinter, some opinions
Where's
on the
Lance
Sagan
today? I don't see him.
controversy. I know that's going back a little bit, but
Yeah,
would love your opinion on that.
Dig deep
Should
on
he
that
have been,
one.
Should he have been DQ'd?
I don't think he should have been DQ'd from the race. I thought he was trying to.
I
impede
agree.
Cavendish's progress,
Cavendish should
but
be in
100%
the
not
race
trying to
now.
crash him like he did. And there was a bit of leaning going on from both guys. So he kind of did come out of his line, in my opinion, and probably should have been relegated to last place that day. But to be kicked out of the tour was, I thought, way too extreme, in my opinion.
We agree. Yeah.
There's
and then all of
Lance.
us were pretty into the green jersey chase, which I'm sure you follow closely.
Yeah.
And we kind of, if you haven't watched, and there are a lot of people listening to this podcast who are not even, or just don't have the time to watch the tour stages. Kittle crashed out today, so the green jersey is pretty much for the taking for Matthews if he can just stay upright. Right?
Absolutely. I mean, look how it's changed the dynamics of the racing the last few days. I mean, what we saw.
We're having a little bandwidth breakup here today. I don't know what Spectrum doesn't have their act together or what the deal is. But I'm going to put a little announcement about the Hangout on my Facebook page. So you can come join the tour, the AfterStages.com Hangout that I'm posting right now. Putting up a little notice on it here. We have posted it online, and it's live, and we've got a live event going, and we're watching this podcast. We do a reload here, so maybe we'll get some sound.
Have a true uphill.
finish, which we did not have today. But it's up to Rigoberto Urán and
Hey, Bobby, how you doing?
and
Trying to get my sound going on
Hey,
here. I'm using
to
the phone with the stabilizer today, trying to keep things stable. But I'm having a bandwidth issue with this podcast here, unfortunately.
to try to win the race. I mean, it's their last opportunity. You can't let it come down to the time trial. I'm sure Urán is confident in his time trial, but he's not going to make up 27 seconds in that TT.
Okay. You pointed out something interesting to me, and you guys can shed light on this. The downhill became a factor today because that lead group crested and Aru he just broke a little bit. And you think it's a 20-second gap or something like that. And you're like, okay, he'll get over the top and rejoin.
It wasn't 20 seconds. It was 5 seconds.
That little bit just over the crest, explain what happens and how that became such a big gap on a downhill where usually the descent brings everything back together.
If you're 5 seconds down and you're the best descender of the GC favorites, you get back. If you're 5 seconds down and you're not that you're bad, but you're not the best, and the ones in front, the other Roman Bardet, even Chris Froome's great on the downhills. Urán, but you cannot come back. 5 goes to 10, goes to 20, and you just can't make it back unless you're that good or you're willing to take those kind of risks. This, which I don't think it's a good idea, but it's one of those things where I know what he was thinking. The last K, before the top of the Galibier, you saw him. He's like, I have to get back. He knew it. If I don't get back, I'm done.
Those guys on the radio, their directors on the radio were telling them, do not let him back.
No,
They went full gas.
they were screaming in their ears. And they keep in mind too. I don't know exactly how far. Let's call it 10 seconds. He's still going uphill as soon as they can, and they're going down. They are going as fast as they can, and he's still going. Theoretically, he's still going uphill a little bit.
Can a group on that downhill move faster than an individual? I know it varies.
That downhill, that first part of the downhill there, we talked about it yesterday, which is called the Lotare.
Lotare.
It's you're steering more than pedaling. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
That's just, I mean,
windy.
I tell you, the coverage with the helicopters, and it's fun to sit there and watch it with people that have never done it. So today we had our sheriff sitting down there with us. Average fan or a new fan, the risks, what appear to be risks that these guys are taking with no guardrails. If you blow a front tire, if you just miss a turn and you go off,
It's talking about the risks.
there is no telling what happens to somebody. It's
How
just
far down?
Taking huge risks on this thing with no
I mean,
guardrails.
oh
Stop.
man.
No, they showed on the cover today a shot that I don't recall seeing before, and that was when you think about the descent. Like the motos have a hard time keeping up with the bikes on a descent like that. And it was a shot of a cameraman standing on the back of the moto, shooting down
Right.
on the bike just as it made those hairpins. That's one of the gnarliest shots I've ever seen. And
Those guys have been doing it a long time. Both the driver and what they would refer to as the pilot and the cameraman, these aren't guys that they just went and picked up from the Paris nightly news and said, yeah, go film the Tour de France. These guys they've been doing it a long time. And most importantly, they trust the driver. Like, you'd have to, right?
Right.
Oh, and some rain.
Yeah, that'd be scary.
Do you not like having your headphones on all the way, or is
I
that
kind of like the
is that a look?
A little bit of ambient
half
sound.
off.
Kind of a hip. It's a little. George has always been very hip. If you go Google some old pictures, the hair.
Let's talk about the next coming days or something.
You don't want to break down your past here? Okay. Let's talk about the wind on the climbs too. I don't
Hey,
think
Travis
the
Wade,
average fan
thanks for watching
thinks about it like
watching
we
that.
did yesterday.
Stages.
And that makes
podcast.
a big difference on whether you see a bunch going to the top or breaking up. So do those mountaintops, like the Galibier, do they get wind sweeping up it? Or down just the same?
The Galibier gets exposed. You get above tree line. There's no shelter. I mean, obviously you have the things you have the camper vans and the fans and things like that to give you a little bit, but the projection was for headwind. But that wasn't the case. It was tailwind. So tailwind, most people think, I have a tailwind, it's going to be easy. In a race and in the dynamics of a race, the tailwind makes it harder because, for example, if there's a headwind, it neutralizes the race, even on a climb. And when there's headwind, even on a drafting is not, we've spoken about this before, drafting is not so key on climbs, but if the headwind is that strong, you can draft. So when you turn the wind around and it comes from behind, it's sort of every man for himself. And
In the chat here, they're talking about it was why they didn't see people putting newspapers on their chest when they went down there.
a team like Sky, who's so strong, they can pretty much do, for them, if it's a headwind,
Sky
it's
is
very hard on the team. George
incredible.
was talking about that, but the tailwind was perfect for them.
The headwind makes it easier for people to attack when you're setting tempo, and makes it a lot tougher. You can get some speed on the little downhill rollers and really attack the people.
George Hincapie's on.
It's a nightmare for people controlling the race.
Talk about controlling the race. This is great to bring up. We touched on it a few days ago before the rest day, and with you in here, George, it's really good to bring up because, when you guys were doing it, you had a team with one goal, and we brought it up when you have teams that have sprinter goals, and then they have GC goals, and it's like, what, in your opinion, George, is that due to a team dynamic? Because you guys always went in, even though you could have jumped in and contested some sprints, you working for a singular effort.
It just depends on who your leader is. If it's somebody who's, like Lance, it was pretty easy to set those goals and know going in that was your role. And but I was on other teams as well that we had that sort of dynamic where we had a sprinter. For instance, High Road with Cavendish, and we had Nick Rogers as a GC guy, or Kim Kirsten. So I kind of got to experience all the different aspects of the team role in the Tour de France, and they're all interesting, and they're all hard in their own way. That's for sure.
Boy, Kim Kirsten, I haven't heard that name in a long time. Got to Luxembourg.
He was in the yellow jersey.
Yeah, had to stop his career. Had a heart issue. He was great talent. Look, I just see a tweet here. The Gruppetto, typically the Gruppettos, 30 to 50. 98 riders in the Gruppetto. You think this Tour de France field is not tired? 98 riders, almost 34 minutes down.
And Mike Matthews was in the breakaway, which he would, typically be one of those Gruppetto guys.
So when does the altitude start to become a factor on these climbs?
It's a good question. That's most people, when they think of altitude, here we're in Colorado, we are sitting at 8,000 feet. From here, we can climb to 12,400. So, and this is what we think of when we think of mountains. The Alps, today was a little bit of an exception. The Alps are not that high. You get things like Alpe d'Huez that are 6,000-ish. Today, we have, the Galibier is high. You see, they get above tree line. I think, to me, there's only two places where I ever really noticed altitude, and George, you can chime in when you want, but the Galibier, you notice it, and the Mont Ventoux. And the Ventoux, theoretically, is not that high either, but you just feel it there for some reason.
Yeah,
it's got a weird tree line. There's nothing, clearly not on there, which to me indicates
that you shouldn't be able to breathe.
We probably shouldn't be hanging out here too long. But for the most part, if you, for example, you do Alpe d'Huez and you come up from Grenoble, or you're starting pretty low and then you kind of ride into it and then you're done. Today, this climb, the Gaudier, is so long and does get high. I think at that point, the riders do think that they have to, quote unquote, manage their efforts. They can't, go from the, it's just, it's one of these things where you dig a hole at elevation. It's very difficult to dig out, right? I mean,
I saw it with Contador. I mean, he was flying up the Croix de Fer and then he just kind of lost it, halfway up there in Olivier.
Yeah. I think the mechanical didn't help him. I don't know, just mentally, but yeah, if you're not at the top of your game, you can't do that effort and then expect to get over the Galibier. But hats off to him. He tried.
You know what I couldn't help?
People love that kind of stuff.
I couldn't help but wonder today watching it. So the Galibier is a climb that's done often on the tour, or at least it's familiar to me.
It's one of the monuments of the tour.
Right.
When you think of iconic climbs, the Alpe d'Huez, the Ventoux, the Galibier is in there. All these other ones are, they're second tier things.
But you've talked about climbs like that where you guys would go do recon for sure on a climb like that. What I was wondering today, do you ever go back when you were prepping? This is kind of like, I'm thinking of football and watching film, right? Did you ever go back and watch some previous tours where people climbed to see where attacks went down, where people were vulnerable? Did you ever kind of go retro? No, it's irrelevant.
I think that's more, this is a great question for George. I think that's more relevant in the classics. So in the one-day races, that there are, for sure, the one-day races. And in Milan-San Remo, if you took the life of that event, 100 whatever years, and you looked at winning attacks on the final climb up the Poggio, I mean, you could take it down to like a 30-foot section. They send that attack in almost the very same place if you want to try to win that way every year. And I'm sure it's that same George in a Roubaix or a Flanders, but the big tours, it's
well, even the World Championships, for instance, the riders will watch, the amateur race before, the junior race, just to see what happens, and they'll help kind of dictate their tactics for the next day.
Before George leaves, I want to hear something that pisses him off. You're just such Mr. Nice Guy. I want to hear you get mad about something.
Those earphones are pissing me off.
Hey, let's talk a little bit about.
Where's George? George isn't going anywhere. George isn't leaving.
No, I'm just saying I want to hear something that makes him mad.
I'll have to think about that.
Okay.
Sure, there's a lot out there.
Something that's been irritating you maybe about this tour. Let's talk about the crowds. On a lighter note, we all loved Surfer Dude. Maybe he replaces the devil as a favorite. Did you see the guy in a wetsuit?
The guy running alongside the group with the full wetsuit and the surfboard on the Galibier. Who sits at home and is like, I think running along with the surfboard is kind of a good idea. Like,
we haven't seen Borat this year, have we? The neon clown bathing suit.
With the hike-up bathing
That's always
suit?
disturbing to see him outside the road.
Something that came up observing today too is how the crowd comes into play when you start getting at these summits.
Yep.
As far as being able to attack.
Yeah.
I never even thought about that because literally it gets so jammed up, it becomes like a single track.
You can't get around. So, for example, and this can work both ways. If you were having a little bit of a crisis and you knew that you were getting close to the top and you saw this throng of people, which a lot of folks think is scary and sketchy, it's not as daunting as it looks. But if you get to the front and then you're in control of the tempo. They cannot come around you because the people are there, that they won't ride into the people. They're afraid they'll hit the people. So you can almost, in a sense, by slowing down the tempo and running tempo,
I try to slow down the tempo. I just had to think about that for a little bit. I do not remember that ever
You're
happened.
calling BS.
Well, because if someone tried to slow you down, you definitely would have gotten around.
look, I'm just trying to cover all the bases here. All right, I'm fine.
It was an interesting thing that came into play that I had never thought about. I also never thought about this. You would think, and they even referenced it in some of the TV commentary, that on a climb like that, you're sort of loading your bike with lower gears. You said to me the opposite while we're watching. You're going to need the big gears for the downhill.
I mean, if I were, we don't know what, I mean, I think the standard setup for front chainring, so that the gears in the front of the bike is typically 53-39. That's probably standard for most guys in this field. That finish and that run in where they're going upwards of 50 miles an hour, and you're thinking, I'm going to either need to get back, or I'm going to be in the break, or I'm going to try to go, Roman Bardet, for example, and he wants to get away on the downhill, throw a 55 on there. Because you saw when they're coming down, they're going so fast, and they can't catch the chain. They're essentially just coasting. They look like they're pedaling, but they're not, they're just spun out, as we say, because they have a 53. But if you want, you could even go bigger. You could go 56. That was a perfect finish to throw on a 55. Or
I'm assuming there's a legal limit on the front.
I don't know. I don't think so.
I don't think so.
But you can't have a 60 and a 39. It won't shift right. So
It's
that
just
gap between the two, you can't get too great.
It's limited by chain.
Plus,
on,
the
basically.
corners are going to limit that also. You still got to slow down for the corners no matter how fast you're going.
Do any of the guys, when you're cornering like that on a descent, do any of the guys run a different to corner? It's just, no, that would just throw you off too much on time.
Yeah.
Okay, just a random thing I thought I'd throw out there.
Yeah. You do not want to clip a pedal.
I know sprinters, crit racers will do it.
Yep.
But clipping a pedal on one of those descent turns could happen easily, could it not?
Yeah, but that would be a really bad thing.
That would be bad.
I mean, because that leads, if you were to clip a pedal, and the bike skips, oftentimes when it skips, this happened to me in 2010. I clipped a pedal on a roundabout leading into one of the climbs, and as my bike skipped, the tire caught and rolled off, the sew-up rolled off the rim. And then you're really fucked. I mean, then it's...
That was right before the big climb, right?
Yeah, that was...
Over the past 2 weeks, we've heard a lot of, I wouldn't say frustrations, a lot of things that just kind of set Lance off a little bit. That why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? As you've been watching, George, over the last 2 weeks, is there something that stood out to you? Like, why are they doing this? Like, what tactically or anything like that?
That one day I was texting Lance, I forget which stage that was. Actually, the day Ron won, I was surprised that Stano was helping. They spent so much trying to isolate Froome, and then they all just worked together to go at the end. I thought that was a big chance to just risk it all and say, look, you have to do the work here, and you're in the lead. This is your responsibility. That was pretty much the.
Right, and I quoted your text on the show that was. And now look, well, I guess you never know, right? You don't know that Fuglsang crashes and breaks his arm and is out of the race. You don't know that Aru starts to fade in week 3, but you can never look back on that and make sense of that, what they were doing that day.
You guys want to tackle some questions?
Yeah. Well, let's talk about tomorrow first.
Okay.
Because tomorrow's, again, this is their last chance. If you're Rigoberto around, George was born. Are you cheering for him?
That is not true. I wasn't born in Colombia, but I have all my family is Colombian.
That's right.
Tomorrow's Colombian Independence Day. Nobody's working. The whole country,
See,
Colombia,
this is good shit.
will be
Keep
on
going.
TV watching Rigoberto run.
We're cutting out again. George Hincapie's
From
talking about
Antioquia.
everybody in Colombia is going to be
It's
watching
going to be
tomorrow.
incredible. It's a national holiday tomorrow to watch Tour de France.
So it's like their 4th
And
of July.
if you watch Uran over the last 3 or 4 days, or all the mountain days, he's just been kind of following. I mean, he hasn't attacked. In my opinion, I feel like he's putting everything.
Durant could
tomorrow.
win the Tour.
So I'm hoping to see some big things from him tomorrow.
So we had the 4th of July, then we had Bastille Day, and now we have.
Colombian Independence Day.
That's pretty cool.
Columbia.
So, but it's his last.
Prediction time now.
But finally, again, a true uphill finish on the Izoard, which is a hard uphill finish.
Very tough.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hard.
I don't remember the last time that, if ever, I'm sure they have, but I don't remember ever finishing up the Izoard.
I don't think we did.
No. It's very remote. You'll see some of these, a lot of these uphill finishes, except for Ventoux, I mean, Alpe d'Huez, Courchevel, a lot of the ones in the Pyrenees, they ended at a ski resort. You'll see the Izoard is just, this is like,
It's kind of like in the top of Bantu.
yeah, it's just a wasteland. But it's hard. So it's the last chance for Uran, and it's certainly the last chance for Bardet because, you know, his TT skills are significantly less than Rigoberto Uran.
So anybody who plans to get ahead with a climb tomorrow is it?
That's it. This is their last. They got to send it, as the kids say.
Okay. All right, some quick questions.
Hey, Michael
Then we
Deere,
gotta go
how
ride
you
again
doing?
today.
I know. George
already rode this morning.
He already rode. He had one of these.
This morning.
He had one of
Morning
these
ride.
swanky, highfalutin, high roller millionaire rides. I'm just going out with the homies. I see. Look, they're rolling up right now.
Were you on one of those rides where they spend most of the time at the coffee shop eating pastries?
Well, it was primarily all downhill first hour, and then I called Daz to get back to this thing. So
Let's tackle some quick comments and questions.
Yeah.
Mark writes, "Hey guys, everyone here in Dubai is enjoying the podcast. What is the hardest climb you've ever done and the hardest you have raced?" Let's just leave it at raced.
Well, the hardest the hardest climb I've ever done is the Mortirolo, which I never raced because it's always part of the Giro. I did it in training once. It's the width of a cart path, and it is straight up the whole time. It's crazy hard. The hardest climb that I've ever raced is hands down Mont Ventoux. There's nothing harder than Mont Ventoux. That's
Mount Ventoux,
in my
man.
opinion. George,
What
may have a
exciting
different opinion,
races Lance had on
but I don't think
Ventoux.
anything gets close to that.
Nothing close
Steep
to
at the
it.
top, exposed and windy and hard at the top. I mean, that's it. Steep at the bottom and then just gets open and exposed. Thin air at the top.
I'd agree. Bantu or Tourmalet, depending on which side. I mean, that one side where you're kind of climbing through the valley for 5 miles or so. He's giving me this funny.
Tourmalet's like a little warm up.
Those tunnels at the top, you're going through 10%. That's hurt.
Wet kiss.
Rick writes in, "Dave Lettieri changed his flat in 2.5 minutes flat on a ride this morning." That's your buddy Dave, right?
My buddy who has the green jersey.
My question is, can either of you even change your own flat?
Certainly change our own class, but not that fast. I would say.
I can change a flat, just despite what most of the world thinks. But
The last time Lance and I had to change flats was in our little 24 hours of Pueblo, and that did not go well. I think Lance lost like 10 minutes that lap, and I lost like 5 minutes.
all right. At least I had. Who had the wrong size tube? Was that you? And what a dipshit move that is. I'm riding 29ers. I get a flat, and I go to change. I got this. Oh wait, this is the wrong size. Who the hell who put that in the saddlebag?
Did you try to stretch it out and make it work?
No, I didn't.
Just
I
call
begged
her
some
out.
dude to give me a tube.
Okay, David's asking, can I watch this live feed after the tour has ended? I just thought it would be good to address that. These are going up daily on the We Do YouTube channel.
Okay.
Everything you're getting on Facebook Live. And this is for both of you. Mateus writes, shout out from Denmark. Which rivalry did you enjoy the most? We'll make it yours on, and we've talked a little bit about it, but then we'll maybe touch on classics with Jordan.
Yeah, I mean, Jan
Knock at
Ulrich
the door.
was my biggest rival, and his team was our biggest rival. But that's the one I enjoyed the most. But ironically, he's the one I liked the most. He's the one I respected the most. You know, early on we had, Homsey was a big team. They had Chevalier and Maloki, and they had all these guys. I mean, I hated those guys. Or didn't hate them, but I hated racing. It just didn't. That was a true rival. Jan, I'd have to make stuff up. That'd be I hate this. Nah, but it was a great deal of mutual respect between the two of us. But here, what is a rivalry? A rivalry is the thing that gets you up in the morning and gets you out the door and gets you to work harder than you would. So in that sense, Jan Ulrich was the only person that mattered. He's the only guy that I said, I got up every day. I thought I have to get out there and kick ass.
Good,
Actually,
George. You probably want to focus on classics, I'm guessing, or you could talk about tour rivals.
I'll talk about tour.
Okay.
Looking back, probably not at the time we didn't reach it that much, but looking back, I kind of enjoyed the Pantani Lance rivalry. I mean, talk about emotional. I mean, Lance pissed him off in a press conference, gave away a victory to Bantu, and that highly insulted Pantani. Pantani the next day attacks Eptagon on Eptagon start line.
A little bit of rental business.
What time was that? We were going to the Juplan, I remember that.
Yeah.
Blew up the race into pieces. We chased the whole day. He gets to the Juplan. I think we were just about to catch him. He pulls out of Tour de France and goes home.
Yeah.
I mean, who does that?
Double,
Double.
just flies both of them. I'm
Yeah.
like, well, wait a minute. And then I cracked on the Juplan, and Jan went away, and it ended up being a bad day. But we were caught up in the emotion of that, and it yeah. He was.
You had to hear Lance that day on the radio. He was definitely fired up, to say the least. Fired up so much that he didn't even eat and he bonked on the Juplan.
Yeah.
What about in the classics, George?
The classic for me personally was the powerhouse Mapei team, which is Quick Step now. You know, they were always the go-to team. There was always the team that I was trying to beat. They had the numbers. There was many times we had to get to a finish, and there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 of them in the final group. So I was always trying to crack that armor. It wasn't always as successful as Lance was at it, but I enjoyed, watching those guys race. And still to this day, they're on top of the classics.
Did you like finishing on the track, like some of those classics? Or do you,
Oh,
riders
there's only
hate
one
that?
classic. It's Roubaix.
Roubaix the only one that does that?
Yeah, that's the only classic that finishes on the track. Well, actually, Zurich used right.
Finish on the track.
It's exciting for television, but I always wondered if riders like that.
It's exciting. Riders like getting to the finish Roubaix, no matter what. Just 'cause it's such a hard race. You just
And
want to
one
get it
piece.
over with. So
You could finish at the prison there. Like, sweet, we're done. Lock my ass
I
up.
just want to get.
What do I know? I never did bike race.
You have done the Cowboys.
I have. JB, there's a whole crew of people out here ready to go bike riding.
All right, I'm gonna. Again.
Yeah.
And you brought this up. Any thoughts on all the mechanicals this year? It seems a bit unusual.
We saw it again today with Contador at a critical time. I don't think that's what led to the way he. But I don't know. I don't know if the gear is getting lighter and lighter and more specialized. Not the brand specialized, just getting a little more sensitive in that it just breaks.
It sounds durable because they're cutting weight.
Well, they only can cut so much weight, right? There's a weight limit. You can't have a bike. I'm pretty sure the limit is probably still right around 14 pounds, which is super light. And so, but I don't know. I don't know if it's what it is, but it's certainly peculiar. You got any thoughts on that?
I think it's a Tour de France 3 weeks. There's mechanicals always. I mean, when Cadell won the Tour in 2011, same thing. He had a mechanical on this stage, halfway up the Telegraph. Had to, couldn't stay with the group. He's in between. We made him wait for us so we can help him chase back up. So these types of mechanicals happen all the time. It's inevitable.
This will be a good one. I'll throw one more in real quick. It's perfect with both you guys here because it seems like when both of you were coming up together, there were good programs, development programs, mentors, coaches. It was a whole class of good riders. And Zach writes, good for both of you guys to answer, your thoughts on American cycling, the state of it right now, up and comers. You've talked a little bit about this earlier, but it'd be great to do when George is here. Like
he can talk about his team. This guy has one of the best development teams in the land, and so.
But a lot of the tour conversations started off. There's only 3 Americans, and you guys can paint a bigger picture.
Lance closes his laptop. You can tell he wants to head out.
3 to 5 years.
Yeah, I think we have some good talent coming up, and we have some current talent as well that just might not be on top of their game for this Tour de France. I think Delansky could have done a much better Tour de France had he played his cards right, or maybe just didn't arrive in the best shape. Lance is shaking his head, but I think he's definitely capable of top 5, top 10. We're missing TJ at the Tour de France, who's obviously from here in Aspen.
We have a lot of people have asked me if I want your view on this, George. Was it a mistake not to take him?
Well, there's no way you can predict what's going to happen at Tour de France. There's no way you could have predicted Ford crash. And I mean, BMC gave TJ the leadership role.
Oh, we're having breakup again. The signal's breaking up. Let's see if I can fix that. Boom, boom, boom. Cappy was talking. They're getting ready to wrap up the podcast here. Let's try to start it again. There we go.
It'll be delayed though.
5-second delay. Yeah. We're good. Are we live?
Oh,
Live on Facebook?
they wrapped it up. They finished the podcast. Okay.
I don't know. I don't see it. We're messing with. Oh, I do. Oh my God.
This is well. Actually, this is the beginning that we didn't catch
Is
earlier.
that freaking you out?
That's really freaking me out. Wow. How y'all doing? Hey, happy National Hot Dog Day. That's
National
what I want.
Hot Dog Day.
But more importantly, we have a special guest in the studio here today.
George
Which we tweeted out and
Hincappy.
showed a picture of, so it's not a surprise.
Hincappy.
My old teammate and old friend George Hincappy sitting over there on the couch.
What's up, Facebook?
Hey, Facebook. Hey, George.
Oh,
Good to be here.
it is good to be here, George. George he's in town for a couple things, but we're doing this weekend we do a big fundraiser every year called Wapi Yapi. That benefits a great charity called
Wow,
Wapi Yapi.
look at
So
this
we're,
airstream.
I gotta shut this down. I can't look at it.
It's
That is
distracting.
awesome.
It's in delay,
That
but
is
it's
an
working.
incredible view.
Yes.
It's working. Yeah, so George is generous enough to always come into town for Wapi Yapi. We do a ride and we do a dinner and raise a bunch of money for a great young organization.
How do you spell that?
So
Wapi
exciting
Yapi.
day, right? I mean, I guess it was. I say it was exciting. It was maybe it was a little uneventful. I was really this kid who won this Primoz Roglic.
We got to talk about him because does he have a story?
If you haven't seen it yet, and I'm surprised they didn't show it on the broadcast today because they showed it a week or so ago. He used to be a ski jumper, and I'm talking like snow ski. Like I don't know anything about ski jumping, but he had a crash 10 years ago in 2007 that you'd have thought he was dead. And he gave up the sport after that, and then only started cycling in 2012, and now he's one of the best time trialists in the world, and what an impressive ride.
So that
Yeah,
raises
he
two
won today.
questions in my
Roglic won.
One is if you have a career-ending injury in ski jumping,
Okay, let's stop
cycling
this
should
now.
be last on your list.
So there you go. Let's see if we have anybody in the Hangout. Let's see, Google Hangout. No, nobody joined. So I'm not promoting this well. Nobody's joining Google Hangouts. Google Hangouts are not popular anymore. I don't know if this is going to work, but I'll keep trying. We'll do this again tomorrow. We'll see if we can get some people in a Google Hangout. It used to be like you could easily get up to 10 people in a Google Hangout, but it's just, I guess it's just passé right now. The Google Hangouts have gone by the byes, but we'll give it a shot. We'll promote it. We'll see if we can do it again tomorrow. Tomorrow is stage 18. I think tomorrow is the last critical stage of the Tour de France, and that will probably determine the winner of the Tour de France tomorrow. So unless something crazy happens, it looks like it's Froome's to lose, but he's got 4 or 5 people that are like nipping at his heels. So tomorrow, tune in to AfterStages.com. Click on the link, join the podcast right after the Lance Armstrong and Hager podcast ends, and we'll talk about their podcast. We'll talk about the Tour de France. I'm gonna promote it on Facebook, on Twitter. I'm the king of Twitter. I ought to be able to get a few followers to join us, and I'll promote it on Google Plus. I'll go on Google Plus and post some things saying about tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow, for the first time, we'll get some actual people in the Hangout. We didn't get any people in the Hangout today, but we'll give it a try tomorrow. That's the end of today's podcast. Thanks for joining. All right, we're going to stop this broadcast.